Right, let's give you the markets update now. The JSE will be contending with higher global markets this morning, with all eyes on U.S. consumer inflation numbers later. Inflation expected to have eased to 8.1% from 8.5% in the previous month, which was its highest in more than 4 decades. Jimmy Moyaha is independent analyst, and he joins us now to unpack some of the market moves. Jimmy, good morning to you. Let's start with what is likely to be the trade in when we take a bit of a breather from the volatile trade this morning. Is that your sense as well, that we are going to see a bit of a breather in the volatility that we've seen in the last couple of days?
Morning, Toli, and morning to the viewers. I think what we've seen today definitely is a slowdown compared to where we've been. I mean, we've seen the top 40 manage to hold above that key 60,000 points level. We've seen a mixed open and a mixed trade in early session on some of the stocks. We've got Naspers up about 2.5%. Then you've got Thungela down some 3% You've got guys like Sibanye down 1%. But on the other side, you've got guys like Ascendus Health that are up about 5%. So you've got a bit of a slow and tapered open and trade in the early session. But again, this is obviously in anticipation of those U.S. inflationary numbers, because those U.S. numbers are going to lead to policy decisions from the Fed, which will then have a spillover effect on the U.S. economy, but in turn the rest of the global economy, as all eyes have been on the U.S. for some time for now. So I think the reprieve at the moment may be temporary, and it is welcome at this stage, given the amount of volatility we have seen in the last couple of days and in the last couple of weeks.
Let's talk about the wage negotiations between steel producer ArcelorMittal and the union here that's organizing in this sector. We're talking about Numsa. It sounds as though a strike has been declared because of the deadlock in these negotiations. These are some of the issues that have been flagged by the ratings agencies. Jimmy, can the economy carry yet another strike?
It's sad to say that it cannot. I mean, if we look at the fact that this is not just going to be a Numsa or a steel sector strike, we've got conversations around a gold sector strike, a platinum sector strike, and even, and most importantly, a public sector strike. And if we see all of those come to fruition, we could be in for some serious economic problems, as if we don't have enough already at the moment. So we can ill afford to have this situation get severely out of control if it then becomes the catalyst to more strikes and creates a ripple effect across other sectors, across other areas and other industries as well. I mean, we know Numsa is outlining the same sorts of issues that other unions are outlining in their spaces in the platinum sector and in the gold sector as well, where it relates to companies like Sibanye, and in outlining the fact that the workers are struggling the most whilst executive pay continues to increase. And this has been a global, I mean, this is not just a mining sector trend in South Africa, this is a global sector, a global economic phenomenon when we're looking at executive pay and how that executive remuneration is being reviewed by certain companies and by activist investors as well, and that sort of thing. So this has been an ongoing trend for quite some time, and Numsa is using that as one of the pillars of their conversation. I mean, another one is to say that the 5% that's being offered by ArcelorMittal at the moment is not enough. Workers for the past 2 years have gotten 2% increase, and that's been almost forced on them without any real option for anything more. ArcelorMittal on their side is saying that they're looking at the sustainability of these sorts of increases on a long-term basis. Yeah. I mean, we've gone back and forth with these. This is not the first time that we've had a union-related strike in the mining sector or in any of the main spaces where the union has a voice on behalf of workers in South Africa. So this is going to be a very delicate situation to watch. And as you mentioned, with ratings agencies keeping a very close eye on South Africa at this stage, we are desperately in need of returning to investment grade status. and getting things right so that we are removed from the proverbial junk status that we're sitting in.
Sure. Let's talk company news for a bit. We start with the Western Cape High Court, which has ordered that Steinhoff hand over its forensic report to the media organizations Financial Mail and Amapungane. This is within 10 days. Are we finally going to see what actually happened there?
Well, we're going to get a better picture of what happened. It's a 7,000-page report. It might take us a while to all dissect and get through the report. But in essence, I mean, a forensic audit report is an audit report that goes a little deeper than your standard accounting audit reports that are done at the end of the financial year. And this looks at a lot more detail around certain transactions, where there were red flags, and effectively it means Steinhoff might have a bit more explaining to do. At a very surface level, the company's come out to say that the CEO at the time, as well as about 7 other executive officials, were responsible for what happened with Steinhoff. But what could come out here, and I mean, Steinhoff has cited that from a legal perspective, this releasing of this report is not something that they want to have happen because of legal confidentiality and certain information within that report. But of course, the court has overruled that and said that access to information in this case is important, and that's the decision that's been taken. And so we might see a situation where Steinhoff has to answer for a lot more than what was previously brought to light. I mean, we know that the JSE lost about 200 billion rand in market cap when this happened. We know that the accounting fraud related to Steinhoff was some 106 billion rand. We know that the PIC was invested in Steinhoff, which means employees, pension funds were invested in Steinhoff. And so there's a lot of stakeholders that have an interest in seeing a more detailed breakdown of how this went south, what happened, who's to blame, where the numbers went wrong, where the numbers were covered up, and that sort of thing. So I think a forensic report like this will start to shed some more light on that. Whether or not we will get a greater breakdown or prosecution of executives or former executives after this remains to be seen. I mean, this is also now something that sets a very different precedent in the public space or in the private corporate space. If you look at guys like Tongaat Hewlett that had similar type of reports drafted and generated by audit firms, those reports, there's now a legal precedent being set for those reports to be requested and being opened up. Exactly. So now we're looking at a possible I mean, all of this is in the interest of greater transparency, of course, and greater accountability. And we could find that some cases are being revisited. We know that Tongaat executives were suspended in their case even before such a report was released or revealed to the public. So you could find greater accountability and possibly greater sort of feedback towards the public, but also transparency around what really happened. So we're hopeful that this sheds some more light on what went wrong with Steinhoff.
Exactly. And the involvement of media organizations, might we see a similar stance that we exposed state capture before the State Capture Commission of Inquiry was then instituted. We shall see how this one pans out. All right, let's conclude with this one, Jimmy, very briefly if you can. NetOne Technologies publishing its third quarter 2022 results. How are their numbers looking?
So NetOne's numbers were fairly consistent. They said that they've seen a 22% increase in their revenues in terms of US terms. It's about 27% if you look at it in rand terms. They've outlined that their earnings before interest and tax has returned to positivity from a loss of about $10 million last quarter. So this comparative period, Q3 of 2022, has been a very good period for them. They also mentioned that their acquisition of the Connect Group was finalized outside of the quarter. So in April, quarter ended in March, and around April 15th, 14th or so, that's when they finalized that acquisition. So we can expect to see those numbers filter through into the last quarter of the year. I think they've also mentioned that their cash on hand or cash and cash equivalents was about $183 million, of which about 160 odd million, about 2.5 billion rand, was sitting in South Africa. There's some sitting in Botswana as well. Overall, I mean, the groups outlined that certain areas, certain segments have performed better than others. They particularly made mention of their consumer segment and their merchant segment, saying that their merchant revenue is the reason why their earnings before interest and tax have returned to positivity, as well as the fact that they're seeing such an increase in revenue from that merchant segment. Their consumer segment showed an increase in revenue of about 6% as well. So overall, I mean, fairly okay results at the moment, which you'd think would be translating into some positivity at the moment, but the share price is sitting at around $4. It represents a fairly decent buy opportunity given where the numbers came in, and if we can expect a strong Q4 from them to wrap up the year, then you could see the share price bounce from this $4 level that we're seeing it at, possibly back towards that $7 highs that it made recently.
Independent markets analyst Jimmy Moyaha, thank you very much for that insight there, giving us a sense of how the JSE is performing, including some company news there.